Hello, Animorphs fans, and welcome back to another episode of watching Animorphs podcasts and getting drunk to them. Today, I am drinking Hoegaarden. Hoegaarden? I've never actually tried it before, but it's a white beer. It's like a wheat beer. So, chill, pour 2/3, swirl, top off, and I didn't do that, I just poured it out. Instinct, you see. So, drinking in fingers, 1 finger, 2 finger, 3 finger. We're watching Animorons. So I went onto the Animorphs podcast directory, closed my eyes and picked one. And it came up with this one. Now this ran from mid-2019 to early 2020. So it stopped after like episode 8, which is a shame. But we're going to look at number 1, the invasion, because it was the shortest video, 55 minutes. Because I don't want these to go on too long, because then I'll just end up drinking too much. Anyway, the rules today. Okay. So, for the fingers, so modern political issues, 2 fingers, character traits, 1 finger, I'll tell you when they come along. TV show criticism, 4 fingers, 90s references, 3 fingers, movie talk, 2 fingers, author mention, 1 finger, something wrong, 2 fingers, naughty talk, 2 fingers, and the podcast name mention is 1 finger. And the last rule, anytime a cinnamon bun is mentioned, you down your drink. But this was, of course, before Axe came along, so I don't know how many of them we're going to get. Were there any comments from the last episode? I'm not counting the Meet the Stars one. I know Meditwaz made me pick up a point from that one, but no, we're going to go back to this one. So, any things I missed? No, apparently not. I got it all. That's great. That's great. I wasn't wrong at any point. So, book 1, The Invasion, Animorphs, Animorons. It's by Chris and Nate. The episode description is 184 pages of the finest introduction to a young adult series. I haven't got time for this. Let's just reverse to the start and go.
Hello, and welcome
Hi.
to the first installment of
Animorons.
So, podcast name, 1 finger, drink.
I'm Nate.
And we are reading for the first time
For some of
all of the Animorphs books.
All 54 of them. Some of the spin-offs, maybe.
There was a spin-off called the Vegemorphs where they could turn into
I don't want to open Steam.
smell.
Wow. There's also the Megamorphs, and then there was a few one-off.
quite
books,
quiet.
like the Visser and stuff like that.
Yeah,
Turn it
I'm
up.
not sure what all's out there, but we're going to go through these. I think we're going to talk a little bit about the books, how we thought they were, if we found anything that was kind of funny, give our opinions, and hopefully make some jokes about them.
Alright.
Please do.
So we're starting off today with the first book. I don't know if you're familiar with the Animorph series as a concept, but they've been coming out they were out for a while. They came out in '96, and they made like 54 of the original ones before they stopped in '01.
That doesn't count as a 90s reference, by the way, just stating the year. Doesn't count.
Written by K.A. Applegate.
Yep.
They were geared towards like
All for mention, 1 finger,
although
drink.
I think they kind of played down some of that. I felt like it was pretty teeny, but I don't.
Yeah, I think young adult's a strong word. I put it into the Goosebumps category,
Right.
where you could read them as a kid and understand them.
Right.
I think they're. I'm gonna.
To be fair, reading it as a young kid, you miss a lot of the underlying
Wow,
stuff.
hot take.
I know. They're fun. They're fun books.
They are fun. They're also, I wouldn't say better, but they don't require any brain power to read. You don't.
Oh, really? Fucking what? Are you kidding? No, that's wrong. That's 2 fingers. Drink. I know it's subjective, but god damn, that's almost objective. I'm counting it. 2 fingers. Drink.
Don't need to really know anything about.
You're implying you need brain power to read Goosebumps.
Some Goosebumps, I would say you probably would like a little bit.
Oh, wait. Were they talking about Goosebumps? Sorry, I'm not
brain
paying
power.
attention.
And you can cruise through at least the first one. I mean,
Yeah.
in like 2 hours.
So let's talk about our history with the books.
Sure.
As a kid, I remember reading some Animorphs books. I got the Scholastic newsletters,
Nice.
and I would beg my parents to order me Goosebumps and Animorphs.
We were white kids in the early 2000s.
Yeah. I don't think as a child I understood the concept of a series, though, because the only other series I was exposed to was the Goosebumps series, which are all one-off books. You can
Right.
read them in any order.
Sure.
And I think I did that with this series. I remember 3 or 4 books. I don't really remember a lot of what happened, but I do know I read them, probably because they have really cool covers.
Oh yeah.
He sounds like he's in a really big
A
room.
lot besides some of the major key points.
A lot of
you know,
reverb.
evil aliens, they turn into animals. There's a hawk guy.
Right. I actually almost the complete opposite of that. When I started Animorphs, probably in like '05, '06, everything I read up until that point was all series. So I read like the Magic Treehouse books. I read Encyclopedia Brown books. There was like a McGee and Me series that I
I haven't heard of any of those. They must be American.
So I was quite familiar at the time with reading a whole series, and there was something I don't really remember because this was like 15 years ago now, but there was something about the Animorphs that was interesting, but felt like it lost its gimmick real fast.
Yeah, I think for every time they transform in this book, there's like a 3-paragraph, like,
Oh, yeah.
it's so gross. My
Yeah.
hair was becoming
Yeah, I think they've.
And
Oh, man.
That is a vital point
you know,
as to why I think the series ended up failing.
times in this book,
Well,
and
not
it
such
happened
failing,
each
but-
time.
Oh yeah.
I doubt that they reduce the amount of transformations, because that's the cool.
This is why a series like, say, Harry Potter, I think was so big, because it put it into really big books and only had so many books, whereas Animorphs, it was episodic and you had so many repeated bits that a lot of people quickly got tired of that. So that's, yeah, valid point.
Part of
That is the cool
Animorphs.
part. They are Animorphs.
So I imagine that gets stale through a couple of the
Right.
books. We're gonna get there.
Oh yeah. Okay, so just real quick impressions on the morphing for this book. My favorite thing is that the underlying homoeroticism where they're saying we change and we don't have any clothes when we come back and the girls have to look away and you're just like, why isn't everyone looking away when you
Yeah.
when you come back without clothes on?
We'll get back to that.
Well, that's definitely naughty talk. That's 2 fingers drink.
Do we want to jump right into the book here?
Yeah, let's talk about the
So
book.
I want to talk about the first lines of the book here. You have the book in front of you. I'm gonna do a synopsis of what I remember the first lines being.
It's not bad, actually, Hogarden. I quite like that.
I can't tell
Where
you
was it
where I
made?
live. I can't tell you my last name.
Yep.
All you have to do is
Belgium. Ugh!
real,
Get it away!
maybe any city,
Belgium.
maybe
Ugh.
your city.
Oh, I did like that.
So I like that because as a kid you're like, oh my god, it could be my city.
This could be me.
And then you find out it's right next to an ocean and there's Hollywood actors everywhere. You know
There are some
it's-
very big events that happen. The first 20 pages, there's a spaceship crashing into a construction site.
Right.
And they're like, the aliens might read these books and see what happened.
Right.
You think the aliens are going to be like, oh, there was another construction site crash landing where this happened, and all the aliens are there, right?
Yeah,
They
that's
know-
where the aliens are.
Yeah, so they're vague about where it is. The author was thinking, I'm not going to give a lot of details, and I don't
Right.
think it was for plot convenience. I think it was for plot laziness.
Sure.
But I just like that idea.
Is that not the same thing?
Tell. How old do you think they are?
I know that they're supposed to be in their teens.
Right. Easily.
Fun fact, I forget which book it was. It was one of the recent ones in my reread. It might have been 37, actually. God forbid I even think about that book. But there was one scene where who did they find? Oh yeah, no, it was 38, The Arrival, and they find Estrid in the mall for the first time. And they say she was roughly Cassie's age. Now that's strange because roughly Cassie's age is saying that she's a different age to the other Animorphs. So Cassie's different age to them? That's just pointing that out.
But for whatever reason, I know I read these books as a child. And
Right.
I always imagined they were my age. I have this weird, like, they're 12 or 13, but they gotta be like 15 or 16.
Well, so they do
No.
talk about not being able to drive because they get in the golf cart and he's like, "Oh, it's just like bumper cars, right?" And you're
Yeah.
like, "You haven't driven anything other than bumper
So
cars?"
they're clearly too young to drive. Yeah, I think they're in that 13 to 15 range.
Right.
Probably 13 at the very
book.
start.
They find an alien spaceship in a construction site.
Yep.
They talk with this alien who doesn't have a mouth. He communicates telepathically.
But what does he look like?
They describe him basically as an alien centaur. So he's
With a scorpion tail.
with a scorpion tail.
Which is
and he's blue.
and he's blue.
He has 3 slits for his mouth, which isn't
Is not a mouth, right?
He's got a little antenna, kind of like a ant, let's say.
Sure.
He's got eye antennas, and he's got a scorpion tail. He's dying. He tells the kids that there's these evil aliens, the Yerks, who take control of bodies, and the only way to fight them is with this power that he gives them to morph into animals.
Didn't say it was the only way they could fight them. I'm not going to call that something wrong, though.
Now, is it Yerks or is it Yerks? There's 2 E's.
Yerks.
Always said Yerks.
That's what I've always said.
Yerks.
I mean, we say yeet for Y-E-E-T.
Yeah, but I feel like this
Yeet.
book predates
It's the
Yeet.
yeet. Sure.
So I would say Yerk. I think I'm going to hold with that just because that's what my heart's telling me.
Right. So Yerks. Okay, so the Yerks have invaded.
The Andalite is the name of the alien, and he gives them the power to morph with the stipulation that you have to stay in that morph for less than 2 hours, otherwise you're stuck as that animal. So
Damn.
He gives them a con to their power.
Right.
And then the evil aliens come. They chase the spaceship down, and they come to kill the Andalite.
Right.
A homeless man is definitely murdered. I remember
yes.
that while the kids were
Yep.
running.
Right. What do the aliens look like?
There's a couple different aliens that they describe.
Yep.
And I mix up the names. There's the Hork-Bajir.
And the
which-
Taxon.
Oh, that pronunciation. Oh,
and the Taxon. The Taxon are the centipede-like aliens.
Yeah.
Hawk-Bajir.
They're 7 feet
Hawk-Bajir.
tall.
They got a bunch of blades.
They've got a bunch of blade arms or something.
Yeah, the way they describe
Pincers.
apparently it's off the elbows and the knees and stuff like that. It just doesn't it just seems like it was designed for a book and not for like realism.
So there is a TV show.
Right.
I haven't watched it yet.
Oh.
I plan to at some point.
Don't.
I'm curious what the costume department did with that.
Don't be curious.
Books, and they're like, oh,
Don't stay away.
Man, yeah.
So they escape the construction site.
Stay away.
And the Yerks kill the
Kill the alien. He turns into a giant and eats him essentially.
Yeah. Basically, I always kind of envision it like the big worm in the hole in the ground in Star Wars, where he just turns into this big thing and just eats them.
Yeah.
And then
The ultimate bad guy is the one who eats him. The
Yeah.
Visser 3 is his name.
Yep.
And he is the only alien with the ability to morph.
Because
Okay.
he's the only Yerk that has controlled an
Andalite.
Andalite. Because that's what the Yerks do. They do crawl into your ear and then start controlling you.
Yeah, they cleverly call people.
I get the suspicion that they've both read the books, but a long time ago, and they're just trying to recall what they know. I get that impression.
Who are controlled by the Yerks.
Controllers.
I feel like it's the Control E, but that's all right. We'll get there.
But you do have moments of lucidity. Because they talk about that at some points in time where you can see this look flash across a controller's face.
So they describe this with the animorphing, where
Right.
when you transform into an animal, the animal still has some primal instinct. And I imagine being controlled by a Yerk similar,
Right.
where they say you have a lot of control, but you can still see it. They talk about his brother at some point. Spoiler alert.
He's a
not
controller.
a spoiler. He is controlled
Controller.
by these aliens. And
Right.
they talk about, oh, I see it in my brother's eyes.
Right.
So they have the power to morph.
Um,
There's 5 characters that get this. There's Tobias, Cassie, Rachel, Marco, and Jake. Jake
Yep.
is our main character.
Jake is the writer, although that changes.
It changes. Each book, I believe, is from a different
Yep.
perspective.
I don't know if they start that at the beginning. But
I don't know when that.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure now that they're basically recalling what they know about the series, not that they've just read it. That's where I think they're coming from. I'm pretty sure now.
happens either.
But I think for the first couple, like every 5th book is written by that person.
So Jake and Marco go back to Jake's house to experiment with each other
Yep.
for morphing. They become Jake's dog.
Actually, just Jake becomes Jake's dog. Because you have to touch the animal in order to become it. And you don't become an animal.
Wait.
You become basically a clone.
To experiment with each other
Yep.
for morphing.
For the first couple, like every 5th book is written by that person.
So Jake and Marco go back to Jake's house to experiment with each other
Yep.
for morphing. They become Jake's dog.
No. That's wrong. Jake and Marco go back to Jake. No, that's not how it happens. No, something wrong. And I get it. Yeah, they're just recalling it, so they're bound to get something wrong. So there's something wrong for it. It's probably going to be a big one for me tonight. 2 fingers, drink.
Actually, just Jake becomes Jake's dog. Because you have to touch the animal in order to become it. And you don't become an animal like it. You become basically a clone of that animal.
So when Jake transforms into Jake's dog,
Gordon or something? I don't
Gordon,
know.
whatever, the name's not important.
That's wrong. The name is very important. I'm not going to pick him up on that. Gordon's a good name. It's a strong name.
He is a copy of the dog.
Homer.
They got it right.
Nice little...
Simpsons reference?
or Iliad.
Or the Iliad. I found that this book had a lot of hip 90s references.
Oh, yeah.
To name a few.
Here we
I
go.
like the mall. I mean, I know that people used to go to the mall, but
That's not a
So
90s
they say
reference.
Mall rats, which I feel like is an expression that died shortly after the 90s.
Right.
They mentioned Star Trek, They mention the X-Men. They mention Looney Tunes.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
They do mention Looney Tunes.
So you're saying there's loads of 90s references, and you mentioned malls, Star Trek, and Looney Tunes. Who are these people? I was waiting for a 90s reference. Like what? Looney Tunes was around like the 30s, 40s, maybe 50s.
Because they do like to throw in those nice little references. However, they almost always do it in a very weird, overhanded metaphor.
Yeah.
And you're like, is that how people talk?
I didn't catch that as much.
So that was one of my complaints with the book, was that sometimes they act like 8-year-olds, and sometimes they act like 18-year-olds.
And they say things, which you are right, is not how people talk. There is a point in the book where Marco is doubting whether or not they can fight these aliens because they've seen this giant alien and they're saying, how can we be animals and fight that? And he looks at Jake and is like, it's like fighting an impossible boss in a video game. And Jake looks at him and goes, yeah, but I'm pretty good at video games.
Yeah.
No
Yeah.
one says that. No one talks like that.
Are you serious?
Things like a cool teenager would say.
One of my favorite parts of this book,
Which
we
is?
jumped ahead of this. Mm-hmm. They're going through this construction site where the alien crashed because they're coming back from the mall.
They arm all around, sure.
And Jake is with Marco and Tobias.
And Cassie and Rachel, they're all
Cassie and Rachel.
Yeah, they're all there.
there. Okay, sure.
He's introducing Cassie and Rachel. He describes Rachel as very attractive.
Yep.
Beautiful, blonde, blue eyes. Like the girl that you were like, oh, she goes to another school, but I'm dating her
Right.
when you were a kid. And then he's like, oh, she's very attractive. But she's my cousin, so I don't think of her that way.
It's like losing the game. Like, by mentioning the fact that you don't think about it that way,
You've thought about it
You've
already.
thought about it that way. Like, instantly lost, gone.
Jumping back forward again.
Fair enough.
Marco and Jake are at Jake's
Is that naughty? No, it's not really, is it? It's verging.
house, and Jake's brother Tom is acting funny. He's quit the basketball team.
Tom is basketball.
That is his personality in these books.
Tom is basketball.
Me and my brother did XYZ together. He's like, Tom plays basketball.
To be fair, basketball is a shit game. I'm not surprised he dropped
His
it.
entire personality.
That's all he's got.
And at this point, you're thinking, wow, Tom's an alien. And Tom talks about how he joined this
Group.
cult.
The sharing.
The sharing.
A bad name.
A bad name. And immediately I'm thinking, this is a yurt cult.
Oh yeah, of course. You go.
There's
Yeah.
no doubt. And these characters are dull, and they don't see it the way we see it, which
Sure.
is obvious.
Right.
Later in the book, Marco even describes it as a cult.
Right, okay.
They go to a beach bonfire. For the
Basically, is a cult.
No one does ever any. Do people just still do that? You still go to with multiple ages of people that you don't know?
And we should clarify, the sharing is not a children's group.
Nope.
The sharing has cops in it.
The assistant principal goes there, a bunch of kids, and also, while at this bonfire, all the adults and the full members split off and just eat our barbecue or whatever.
Yeah.
And you're like, how is this not poisoned?
So they split off to
Yep.
go talk about how they want to get new members so
Yep.
they can infect them with yurks, the little slug aliens.
Right. And while at this group, they talk about the kids that were there and escaped. And they finally, at the end of this, because this is 108 or 140 pages into a 180 page book, they finally talk about how, hey, they're kids. If they saw aliens, they're probably going to tell someone that they saw some aliens.
Kids can't stay quiet for long.
But
That's
also,
true.
we got to find these children.
So the way that they get that information is, I believe Jake transforms into the dog
Yep.
and just scrounges around the beach to go listen in.
He goes, oh, I'll turn into a dog. No one will expect a dog, or no one will think twice about a dog on the beach.
But he's a copy of Homer, his
Yep.
dog, and his brother is there. His brother recognizes.
Yeah, that is a
Homer
pretty
the dog.
stupid
Well,
thing.
it never happens, but
doesn't happen.
You would think it would.
It should have.
Because even if you were like, hey,
Naive kids,
dog
what can
looks
you
kinda
say?
like my dog, you would say, hey,
that
that
dog
dog
looks
looks
kinda
kind of
like
like my
my
dog.
I think the book could have used it where Tom later goes to Jake and is like, did you take Homer to the beach bonfire?
Right.
Give you that suspicion. Tom
But to be
does
fair, apparently it was quite late at night, and Jake sort of kept his It's been a long time since I read it.
say, to give you a little introduction on some of the characters.
Sure.
Cassie.
So her parents work at a zoo.
I'm waiting for
and
it.
They have a shelter at their house.
I'm waiting
So
for
they've
it.
gotten a lot of weird morphs by going to Cassie's place and
Right.
stealing all the animals,
Right.
we'll call it.
Yeah, because Cassie is basically that horse girl in middle school.
She is an equestrian lady.
Yes.
So they get a bunch of morphs from Cassie's house
Yeah.
that they plan to use. The most comfortable with morphing is Tobias. He loves to become a hawk. He's taken a hawk and
Right.
he's a hawk now.
Although we haven't really talked about Tobias.
We haven't talked about Tobias.
And Tobias is a bit of an interesting character.
He doesn't have a family that loves him.
He is little orphan Timmy.
He is an orphan. He's got a rough family life, and
He lives with his uncle, right? His parents either didn't want him or dead.
yeah, they're-
I'm sorry that I don't have much to say, by the way, but I'm actually not finding much to say. I'm just trying to listen out for these forfeits because
they talk about it briefly, but it's
very
besides
glossed.
the point.
Yeah.
So Tobias is the outsider, we'll call him. Marco is from a single parent home.
Yep.
He just lives with his father.
Yeah. His mom.
I'm just waiting for those forfeits because they're going through characters now. I'm waiting for character traits.
Dad has left. Rachel is the hot cousin.
The hot cousin, which they never. She doesn't have a personality.
So I originally thought that this was in Alabama.
She does have a person. Where's that comment come from? Right, unless they correct that within the next 5 seconds, that's a something wrong forfeit.
But then they had the beach bonfire.
Right.
And it threw me off. I don't really know what city we're in. We might be here.
we might
could
be.
anywhere.
We could be
I'm calling that something wrong. Drink, 2 fingers.
Yeah, Rachel doesn't. Rachel seems only to be able to break a tie. That seems to be her personality.
She seems to break ties and be authoritative. Like, she seems very headstrong.
Sure.
And that's her personality.
She doesn't have a personality, but, she's headstrong and... That's a personality trait. Christ, you're 1 book in. It's not even her narration. Right, there's something wrong. 2 fingers, drink.
Trait. And Cassie is a vegan.
Cassie's 100%.
She is... No... Again, that's 4 things... Hold on, unless they correct it.
Vegan.
Yeah.
She 100% smokes weed.
Questionable, but sure.
Later in life. I'm saying like
That's it.
That's not... That's... Takes us to 6 fingers. Let's carry on.
Another book. That's in number 40.
I'm saying like 5 years later, Cassie's a vegan and she's smoking weed 100%. And so so Tobias is kind of strange.
That's basically the end of my drink. 6 fingers. That's me down in this. So, out of nowhere, all these fingers, they're just wrong. What is this bollock? When Cassie's not a vegan. She was eating chili in book 8 with Axe. Drink.
And how does he get the falcon morph?
He gets that from Cassie's barn. There's a falcon
Okay.
with a hurt wing. When they become the animal,
Right.
they lose the injury. They're just copying the DNA.
Just
They're
the
not
DNA.
copying the actual bones of the animal.
Because he talks about the thermals. He likes writing the thermals and he likes being able to see a bunch of stuff.
Now notice how they said falcon, which is technically wrong, but they got it right earlier, so I'm just thinking they just, slip of the tongue.
And
To the beach bonfire.
Yep.
Tom is a thing. Assistant principal is the lead thing for the area.
right.
And they named, I think it's Principal Chapman. I
Yeah.
think that was the name.
Assistant Principal Chapman. Yep.
And this jumps back to the beginning of the book where he's like, it could be anyone. It could be your town.
Right.
There can't be a lot of towns with Assistant
Principal
Principal Chapman
Chapman,
who are leading alien invasions. They know. The aliens know at this point.
I guess maybe he was counting on the fact that it takes
I
a few
can't
years
believe
to
what happened to
heal,
Chapman. Chapman
and
is
by then,
so
either
hard done by in the
years have
series.
taken over, or
So Marco says he's doubtful that 5 kids can fight the aliens.
Sure.
And Marco here, for a lack of a better term, is my spirit animal.
Marco's a bummer. Just the whole time he's like, we can't do it. And it's probably not the first thing you want to rush into is the alien invasion, but he's also the last person to morph. He's the very
That's
last
true.
of the group to morph.
Everyone else at this point has experimented
Whereas in the TV series, he was the first.
transforming, whether it be...
Fun
Cassie
fact.
does it to a horse because she's a horse girl, literally.
Literally a horse girl.
I think there's a point, Cassie is a horse, a cop comes,
Okay.
and they're like, cover her, quick. And
Oh yeah, because they're at Cassie's house, and she's still in horse form, and the cops go up and they're like, "Hey, have you guys seen anything weird?"
there were some kids at a construction site. Do you know who that could have been? But Cassie lives on a farm, and maybe my perception of a farm is messed up, but I feel like you don't just drive by a farm to ask some kids a question.
I feel like
Well, when you see 5 kids and you're after kids and you're a yerk and you're after kids, you go to the farm.
There could have been, I don't know, any part of the investigative process mentioned in this book where they're like, we found this shred of evidence or this backpack or something that led us to this. I doubt they're just driving down house by house and being like, well, that looks like a group of kids. I wonder if they were at a construction site 2 days ago.
Knowing Visser 3,
Leave the bonfire.
probably.
They do want to try and do this. Marco's still doubtful.
But they need power. They need animals.
They need animals. Cassie and Jake go through their barn to find a lizard.
Oh, yes.
Because they want to use the lizard morph to follow the principal around to spy on him. So he steals an iguana. He gets into his locker.
Yeah.
Wasn't an iguana? I'm pretty sure it was an anole. Anole. I've got to check this. God, where is it? It's right. So there's that. A green anole. It's a member of the iguana family, so I'll let them off.
Form into this iguana.
Yep.
And it is a small iguana.
Green
and he
anole.
mentions like, oh, this is the lizard. It's a member of the iguana family.
Yeah.
Like you care.
Oh.
So he's kind of an asshole to you as a reader. He calls you out. He's like, yeah, you don't care about... Like, as an author, I don't really know why she threw in this line. Like you care. Like, I don't know if she woke up on the wrong side of the bed that day.
Because she's trying to impersonate a 13-year-old, a naive
Hey,
13-year-old.
but it felt like a very
Oh, yeah. It was a weird
off-putting
dig.
line.
Yeah, so it was a green anole.
A green anole.
To be exact, it's a member of the iguana family. Like you care.
It just feels out of place. It feels like the author is mad at you for something you didn't.
Like, she's going through the...
Oh, by the way, that was an author mention, so one finger, drink.
She's just trying to hide the pain. So she's like, you don't even care about my iguana family, damn it.
You don't even care who it was.
I love a good iguana.
You don't care about the color, you don't care about anything.
So Jake is an iguana member of family, and he follows Assistant Principal Chapman into a storage closet.
Janitor's closet,
Janitor's
sure.
closet. He pulls some levers, knobs,
Yeah, he does some magic.
and he opens a secret door.
The secret passageway to Narnia.
Screaming.
How do they get it there? Because the school's been there for a while.
So later in the book, they go to the Yerk pool and they see bulldozers and stuff. They describe this as huge. They describe it as able to fit malls and a football field. So it's under the town.
Right.
And there's heavy construction equipment there. So
Sure.
they've been at this a while.
Somebody would have heard something, right?
Yeah, but maybe if they're in California, they're like, oh, it's another one of them
Earthquakes.
earthquakes. Because that would fit.
Yeah, to be absolutely fair.
The beach bonfires.
Right.
I don't know if they talk too much.
It's a
about
valid
that.
point.
I think this fits thematically. It's in California in my mind.
I would agree with that, but I have a
Yeah.
hard time believing that, because what the assumption is that in order for them to make this thing massive underneath the whole town, they have anyone that would question it, and people would stumble upon it and stuff like that. Everyone that stumbles upon it, they either got to infect or they got to kill. And how many people are infected and or dead?
They talk about that very briefly.
Very briefly.
They go, well, we can't kill people yet because people will start to notice.
That's at the bonfire, and they're talking about literally just murdering children until they find the right ones.
The principal is the one who says we can't just murder people. We have to be sure.
People will start
Yeah.
wondering if we murder all the children in the town.
Why are all the children dead?
It's like that scene from Game of Thrones where Joffrey orders all of Robert Baratheon's relatives dead, and they go around killing all the kids. Be like that.
The children gone.
So they decide that they want to go fight the Yerks to
Yep.
save Tom specifically.
Right.
Marco says he's in to save Tom, but then he's out.
But then he's out. That's it.
It's one last job.
He's
So-
loyal to one man. That's Tom.
So the 5 kids go to the zoo where Cassie's parents are veterinarians, and they decide they want to go get some morphs.
Right.
So Marco gets his first morph. He
Yep.
gets a
Technically wrong. Only Cassie's mother works there. Her father runs the rehab centre, which is at the barn. But I'll let you off that.
gorilla.
I'm not drinking to that,
Firepower.
Medi Twazzock.
And it seems weird to me that they don't all touch the gorilla to
Yeah,
all get the gorilla.
You know, while you're there, you might as well all get it. You do know that this has to come out in the 90s because this book could not come out after Harambe.
that's when zoo security, the TSA really got in there and
I just want to try something real quick, because I understand that you're watching basically emotionless scene. So what I'm going to do is I will just put some Animorphs on in the background. Just so you've got something there to watch, because, I mean, it's not specifically this podcast, it's most podcasts. There's no video to watch, so just have something going on in the background. There you go.
Going, you can't put any kids in the gorilla habitat
better?
because they're definitely going to steal his DNA.
Yeah, and there was also the security guard comes by, or not the security guard. I'm sorry.
Some guy.
Another scientist comes
Yeah.
by and is like, "Oh, you're the veterinarian's daughter," and they're like handling the gorilla at this point.
They're like in the gorilla enclosure. It's just that Cookie
just-
Cassie and
it's
all of
like-
her friends.
Hanging out with the gorilla, who had a funny name. It was like Big Joe or something.
Yeah, it was Big Joe.
Big
Yeah,
Ji-
which is like
Big
the
Jim?
name of a trucker. And I also like
Big
Trevor
Jim,
Cooper,
I think.
who's like, well,
We'll
let's-
say we're looking for my mom.
And if my mom's here, it's problematic. And if my mom's not here,
It's also problematic.
because she's normally not here at this time. And you're like, that's a weak cover story, but okay.
we'll go with it.
So yeah, so Scientist Man walks by and sees 5 kids like fondling a gorilla and thinks nothing of it. He goes,
Yeah.
"How you doing?" And all she says back is "Fine."
So they go away. That's
Big
fine.
Jim. That Big Jim.
Security guard. Not a really interesting part of the story, realistically.
It was not interesting, but it was very strange. This whole chase scene, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's when they split up again.
So the 5 kids go 4 different directions. There's got to be a lot of hallways to lose this guard.
By the way, do you prefer having just the Animals TV series episodes in the background just doing their thing? Do you prefer that? Just an extra visual thing to go on?
Is the maximum number of directions a hallway really is?
Yeah.
There's only 3 directions for the 5. Logistically,
Logistically,
Someone's
makes no
getting
sense.
caught.
Also, at other ends of the hallway, there are more security guards
Now-
and more hallways.
Nate, you did not know this, but there was a huge boom of zoo security guards back in 97 or 96 when this book was written, and there was actually an over influx of security guards.
There's too many security guards.
Yeah, it was a great paying job.
Oh, yeah,
The benefits were good. You got to handle gorillas.
You got to fondle the gorillas. So they get away in a golf cart.
Which means this hallway is very large.
I'm thinking Austin Powers the whole time. I'm thinking they're about to
Yes.
get stuck and they're wedged in the
That
hallway.
scene.
Why would a hallway do that?
Why
That
is
is
the
not.
hallway getting more narrow?
That's not structurally sound. Like if they hit a doorway, sure.
The hallway just gets too narrow to keep going.
So then, theoretically, what they have to do is they have to get out and climb over the golf cart. Why is it too narrow for a golf cart, but tall enough for a golf cart?
I mean, tall enough for a human.
Yeah, it's just plot convenience. Just play with it. Just play
Then
along.
they run through it, and they get to the tiger enclosure.
They go into an enclosure and they're like, huh, why is the guard not following us in here?
Also, it's just Marco and...
It's just Marco and Jake
Jake,
here,
yeah.
yeah.
And-
Tobias, Cassie, and Rachel all ran different
They
directions.
all scattered from this one security guard.
There's one initially, and then as they're going down the hallway, they see 2 more.
Right. And
So
then
there's a dozen security guards at this point. So they get into an enclosure,
Yep.
and it is the tiger enclosure.
Yep.
Jake touches the tiger. When
But-
they touch an animal, it puts it in a short trance
Yeah.
to steal the DNA or whatever.
It's a very tiring process.
Yeah, so they steal the tiger's DNA, and while it's in that trance, they run.
According to book 39, all they need to do is touch it.
And that's it. They go home.
So the place that they're at, they call
And when I mean
it-
say that, I mean poke, done.
I like the feverish dream of how they describe it because it's got rides, but it's also got like a Sea World,
They
and it's also a
describe it as, like-
zoo, and
They describe it as the amusement park you always wanted to go to as a kid, where it has a little...
Alton Towers. I've never been there. I want to go there.
it's got dolphins.
You know, I'm probably too old for it now.
everything you wanted as a kid.
Was it
I'm nearly
Rachel or
30.
Cassie who got really excited about the dolphins. Who was like
I think it was Rachel.
That's what she's like. Dolphins.
We need a dolphin morph. I don't know what kind of like deep sea reconnaissance they want to do, but to be fair, you might as well
If you
fill
can-
that arsenal up.
If you have to touch an animal in order to get its DNA, just touch all the fucking animals.
I don't know.
To
what
be
happened in these books.
To be fair though, they didn't know if there was a limit to how many morphs they could have.
Main ticks are a thing. Sure.
I think that was mentioned in
Why don't
book
they just take a
2.
tick and give them Lyme disease
you
or
know,
something?
just something like malaria.
Be a mosquito and just give them malaria.
I think it might happen later on, but
They get malaria? What? The Animorphs get AIDS. AIDS morphs.
Yeah, so I briefly remember, it's jumping ahead to another book, but I remember they become an ant at some point.
Right.
And they transform into the ant, and then they realize, like, oh, not all ants are the same. These other ants don't like me. Because we're not from the same hive or something like that. Lots
Yeah,
of
pretty
questions
much.
on why they chose to not steal all the animals. Hopefully they wisen up later in the books. It just feels like a big, like, suspension of disbelief I don't have.
Right. I do hope that at some point there's just one book, and the whole book is just they get captured by animal services, and they just have to. And you can't leave. You can only be in the morph for 2 hours, and so at some point they come back, and it's just this boy in this cage, naked.
So they do mention when you morph, you can't morph with clothes.
Although kind of
unless they're tight, skin tight clothing.
unless they're very very tight clothing.
Yeah, so Cassie figures this out. She morphs in like a leotard or something.
Right.
I imagine they made that a rule just so that like we're not talking about naked children all the time.
Although we are for the first half of the
For
book.
the first half of the book, we're talking
For the
about
first half
naked
of the
children.
book, every time Jake or Marco or Tobias morph, they come out and they're like, "Girls, look away."
All right, ladies.
Look away. All the guys can look at my junk. It's fun or whatever. But ladies, look at the ocean, and we'll.
Well, that's why you have separate bathrooms, isn't it?
They leave the zoo.
Yep.
They're doubtful of their ability to fight this. Cassie, being the vegan that she is, says, "We're fighting for Mother Earth." And Marco, my spirit animal, goes, "Good grief, let's go buy some Birkenstocks and hug trees."
Yeah, that's a character trait. One finger, even though she's not vegan.
Best character in this book, in my opinion.
All right.
I think
I agree. For the first 10 or so books, Marco is the best character.
Sure.
I appreciate the different view. He's not just like gung-ho ready to do it.
Right. Yeah, he is the only character in this entire book that goes, "Wait, what?"
Yeah, he's the one who starts
Marco in this book, and for the first few, is the best
The
character.
only one that has any questions about anything. Everyone else is like, "Yeah, it might as well." It's
Yeah,
whatever.
these other kids,
Correct.
They were given Kool-Aid, they would drink it right up.
so.
Marco is the one who's like, "Who gave this to you? What?"
Cassie discovers her first morph that you come out naked, and that if you wear a leotard, it's fine. The first day, she goes, "Well, I don't want to be naked when I morph out." And she immediately gives them this information, and they don't do anything with it.
Yeah, they're like, "Oh, skin-tight clothing is good? Throw all my clothes in a backpack. I'm becoming a dog."
I'm going to be a dog. What? I feel like this is where Marco could have been like, "Hey, why don't we just pick up some skin-tight clothing or something like that?"
Yeah, so the girls don't have to turn away. And maybe they're like waiting for that moment where
Right.
they're like, "Rachel's looking at me."
Rachel's looking
Her
at me.
cousin. So they get out of the zoo. They steal the morphs. They decide
Is that
to
naughty
go
talk?
fight the Yeerks. They hit the call button on their radios. They get the 5 kids together. But Cassie, they can't get a hold of her. So they go, "Well, we'll catch Cassie another time." They go.
There's
to,
nothing problematic about that.
They go to the school
Yep.
to stop the cult, and they realize that Cassie has been captured by the cop who was at the beach. She was the one who questioned the kids earlier.
Yep.
No,
And they're
yeah,
gonna try
okay.
and infect Cassie. So the kids all sneak in to the Yeerk pool, which they describe as this huge underground base. They basically try to pretend that they are also Yeerks because they figure the Yeerks can't tell who's a Yeerk
Right.
because we all look the same.
But you
And-
think they should be able to.
Yeah.
Yeah, there should be like a sign-in process, to be fair. The Yerks didn't think of that.
Becomes a tiger.
Yep.
Marco becomes a gorilla.
Yep.
Rachel becomes an
Elephant.
elephant.
Yep.
Yep.
Which is the coolest morph here, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone needs the elephant morph. It's the coolest one.
Doesn't happen often.
Go for it.
Do you think you can steal a morph from another Animorph?
No.
didn't think so.
That's silly.
Because from
You're
a
not-
DNA standpoint,
So my question was then, if I touched them, would I be able to turn into a lookalike?
Right.
And I wonder if they're. I imagine they talk about this.
Thing is, the technology isn't really. They don't go in depth into it because it is such shady technology.
explore myself.
Yeah, doing what I do with that morph. I don't know. These questions will be answered, I'm sure.
Was that?
Or they
never
will be.
will be answered.
Or they will never, ever happen.
Wait, was that-
because-
Yeah, I'm becoming my hot cousin. And
right.
I'm doing what I do with that
I'm going to
morph.
explore myself.
That's naughty talk. Freaking hell. 2 fingers, drink.
Yeah, doing what I do with that morph. I don't know. These questions will be answered, I'm sure.
Or they
never
will be.
answered.
Or they will never, ever happen because there's literally not been a new Animorphs book in like 18 years.
Graphic novel!
I'll write
Yeah!
a wording email to the author to figure out.
Actually,
what happened.
We should probably at the end just write a separate book that just explains all of this.
Here's all the questions. Just a big old Animorphs Q&A. They fight off the bad guys.
Yep. Yerks.
They see Tom, Jake's brother, underground. He's not happy. He's getting infected by an alien. So they have like this big Yerk pool, which is literally like a slime ball of alien slugs.
Yeah, I imagine just the color scheme for this Yerk arena is brown and green in my mind.
Yeah, that's the thought. Brown, green, yellow, dark, black. Those shades.
All I think about is that like glowing green. I'm sure they describe it as a completely different color.
Right. I always just think of this green radioactive waste. And,
Yeah,
like,
that's kinda
brown,
Yeah,
like,
it's definitely the impression you get.
So,
Sort of Taxon colour, but the extra darker brown colours.
Visser 3 is there. He becomes a fire-spitting giant tree monster.
Yep.
the coolest morphs.
He's got the coolest morph. He's like, I got this on a moon.
Oh yeah.
And Terrian Bog or something like
And
that.
all his cool morphs.
Right.
So they try to escape. They manage to save Cassie,
Right.
who becomes a horse to run out. We didn't talk about the structure here, but they go into this janitor closet and they go downstairs. And they do mention, like, the horse can't go up the stairs very well.
Right.
So she, like, transforms as she's going up the stairs.
Right.
But now I have the question, is she just wearing a skin-tight leotard, or is she, like, naked running up the stairs?
Right.
Because it sounds like she was abducted by this cop.
Right.
But she already knows how to morph the clothing, so she probably would.
Continuity question.
Was she just running upstairs as this half-naked human, half horse?
It says she runs up as a brown and pink blob. It's very uncomfortable.
The way it's described,
Morphing is meant to be uncomfortable, I'm afraid to say.
Yeah, Cassie actually got 2 people on her back as a horse to escape.
Right.
Visser 3 kills one of them with a fireball, but they do manage to save this one other person.
That they never mention
They
again.
never mention. They don't talk about this.
Some people suspect that's the old lady in Megamorphs 1.
Don't tell anyone.
I doubt it personally, but some people say that.
So I
Right.
imagine they're going to get infected again.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh, so the cop that abducted Cassie.
Yep.
They're like, well, he knows who you are, and he knows we got you out.
Right.
And they say something along the lines of, Cassie doesn't want to talk about what happened, but he won't be messing with us again.
Right.
So Cassie is a cop killer. I just want that on the
I think
record.
Cassie bit his dick off.
No, I think
Probably did more than that.
Cassie is a cop killer.
Alternatively, she could have taken the Yerk out somehow, but yeah, she probably just murdered.
She murdered a man.
She probably just murdered the cop.
And
Hypocrite Cassie.
stays away from it. It's like, she won't talk about it.
Right.
And you don't think, like, guys, I murdered a man. Like, am I going to, like, you're 14. I feel like it's traumatic enough. You can't just keep that one on inside.
No, you would probably mention it to someone.
I'm hoping that in one of these books,
It's just typical hypocrite Cassie. I mean, it was necessary,
she's like,
I'm not talking about
I
it.
murdered a cop.
but it's just part of Cassie's character.
Don't tell anyone I murdered a cop. Shush.
Oh, that's not character trait forfeit, because that's nature lover forfeit.
Oh, classic horse girls.
Oh my word. And with the whole like getting infected thing, Visser 3 has infected an Andalite, right?
Yeah.
And they mentioned that every couple of days the Yerk has to come out and go into the pool.
To recharge.
Right.
It's like a battery.
And like so for the humans, it makes sense. You just tie up the human. But now this Andalite has all of these morphs that are awesome.
I've been thinking about this. I've actually thought about this
I've
recently.
never thought about that.
Just like you've got these.
I imagine they're gonna address that. I wonder if they like put him to sleep,
Sleep or
like
something.
tranquilize him.
I have actually been thinking about this recently, so I'm happy they brought that up. But what do? They must sedate him. They probably do sedate him, or they tie him down, and there's like a Hawk-Bajir just like constantly at his throat, and his tail's tied to a post or his leg or something. But yeah, I have thought about that. They would restrain him in some way or another, because if he weren't restrained, if his tail was loose, he would just kill himself. No doubt whatsoever. So it's just a thought that's passed through my head, but it's never really seemed that relevant.
The only other thing
I'm
I can
doing
think
all
of
my
would be
videos.
that like maybe some other slug takes over the Andalite.
As like to hold him for a bit.
No, Visser 3 wouldn't allow that.
Slug recharge.
No, Visser 3 would not allow
I
that.
think that maybe this might be a plot point. If it's not, it could have been a plot point where the slug that's taking over for Visser 3 is just like, damn, I'm Visser 3 now. Like, why am I giving it back to you?
Yeah, exactly. That's my fault.
Vividly, in one book, they're like, all the slugs want to be in a body. They don't want to be in their stupid slug body.
Right.
So I feel like I remember them talking about the slugs fighting to get into bodies.
Right.
Besides the point.
Also, could more than one slug infect a body?
I don't know. Questions that will be answered in our Animorphs book. Our Animorphs fan fiction.
I've never. No.
Sonic.
No, actually,
On top of that,
in book 39. Oh, book 38. When Mr. King is being tortured, all the Chi have a yerk in their head. And the other yerk said he tried to infect him and it didn't work. Then again, it's the Chi and they're different and they're scumbags, so I don't know.
in that, we'll also have the ship of Jake and Rachel. That's finally going to happen.
They're a weird incestual Animorph child.
Oh, that's naughty talk, 2 fingers, drink.
4 kids, they're like, Tobias transform out of a hawk.
Right.
And Tobias goes, oh, I was stuck underground, watching, and I had to wait for the right time to escape. And Tobias has been over the 2-hour time limit.
Right.
And Tobias is a hawk. And that's where the book ends.
Hawk.
The things that I noticed overall.
I like the way that Americans say hawk. They say hawk, hawk, hawk. It's hawk. Hotel Alpha Whiskey Kilo. Hawk. Not hawk. Goddamn Americans.
They don't use last names, and I
Nope.
think that's partially because they wanted us to be more creative with characters' ethnicities. You don't know who. I think it sells it as a kid. You're like, oh, they're just like me. Whatever you
Right.
are, they're just like you, which
Right.
is kind of, I don't know. They didn't use the last names because they don't want the aliens finding out, but I think that's the creative reason they did it.
Right.
Personally,
Possibly.
One of them is described as black.
is he?
I think.
Cassie's black. Marco
one of them
is
black.
half
Marco
Latino.
Is 100% just a ripoff of Marco from Magic School Bus.
Magic School Bus.
I did not watch.
Is that an American thing?
You know what? Okay. Magic School Bus has a character, I believe, named Marco, who makes all these dumb puns and jokes and stuff like that, and is also the one that is always the last.
That is. I know they're talking about another character, but they reference him back to Marco, saying jokes. That's a character trait. That's one finger. Fucking hell. Drink.
Yeah, and I swear this is just a complete ripoff of what I think is Marco. It might be something. Oh no, it's Carlos.
Carlos.
It's Carlos. It's just a complete.
Oh, okay, so you've lied to me.
I always just picture Marco as Carlos.
Some other things.
Mm-hmm.
When he first transformed into a dog, he talks about his dog. He's like, he was neutered, like me. And I just like that.
It was a nice little bit of information that was not needed.
Not needed
but
at all.
added.
So much flavor.
Where was that? I don't remember
He
that.
also describe, he says, I had arranged for everyone to hook up at Cassie's farm, which I imagine in the 90s didn't mean what it means now.
No, there was no Tinder in the 90s.
Yeah.
So they describe every morph
Fair.
in quite animalistic detail.
They do about 3 paragraphs of whoa, my skin's looser and now it's scaly.
Right. And then also, while as an animal, I think this is actually probably the most redeeming factor of this book. The describing of the instincts of the animal.
Yeah.
Because when he's a lizard, for instance, he gets his tail ripped off and he's
He
looking.
eats a spider.
He eats a spider. The way they describe it's very disturbing, but I feel like it's really.
It's good.
It's
good.
good.
I think it's fun because even when they're in these animals, they don't have full control. The animal's still pulling some stunts.
Right. And I do think a lot of the stuff that they leave out is plot laziness. But I think that this is actually one things that they
Plot convenience, plot laziness.
addition
Same
of
thing.
the instincts, because it does create its own unique set of problems.
Yeah.
They talk about how when he's Homer at the beach, they talk about his dog instincts and how he can't see very well, but he can smell and how he can whatever. That is my favorite aspect of the book because it is the most interesting.
I think it's going to create plot devices in the
Right,
future
right.
where they're battling with their instincts as these animals, just like
Yep,
they were in this.
several,
Right.
many times, really.
Like, oh shit, everything's
Come on, I want to drink more.
oh, I'm very hungry. I'm going to go after that spider.
Right.
And I imagine that later in the books, that instinct, unless they're going to get an ability to kind of handle it better, I think that's going to add a lot of
Flavor.
flavor.
I like that. I do think they give a lot of credit to Jake, especially as the lizard. Don't you think it'd be really hard that first time as a lizard? You think you'd practice it once or twice and be like, he does say
That is one of the things that I don't think they do enough. Practice morphing. Practice the morphing.
Yeah, I don't need to study for that test.
No, but you think that just maybe.
Yes,
just
I
maybe it
agree.
would be
I agree.
If you're gonna be a lizard and spy on like the regional assistant director of Yerks in this area, like maybe you'd practice once or twice.
Yes,
Well,
please.
Cool. And Marco transforms into a gorilla.
Right.
That's the first time Marco ever morphed.
Ever.
Ever.
Was
It's a
it?
big fight.
Good for him.
Good for him. It works
Was
out,
it?
I guess.
I think they might be right.
Notice is they really like to use animal descriptions for people. When Jake wants to get out of something or Marco's getting out of something, they call them a weasel. They're like,
Right.
oh, you weasel.
Oh, you weasel.
They describe Cassie as cat-like at some point, or maybe
Yeah.
as Rachel. They also, instead of saying rat's ass, they say rat's rear.
That's so good. I love
That's
that.
because it's for kids.
No one gives
A
a
rat's
rat's
rear
rear about
about what
me.
It's for kids.
Interesting that even despite having no parents, he was taught morals in such that he does not feel comfortable using the word ass around
What a good kid.
complete.
Although later in the series you start using words like crap,
I think you drop ass every once in a while.
which is worse than ass on the sweary word tier list.
I'm
So,
curious to see through the books, but there's an odd general reference. I'm going to read you this out of context. First of all, it wasn't all that big. It was about as long as a school bus. The front end was a pod, almost like an egg. Extending from the back of the pod was a long, narrow shaft. There were two crooked, stubby, wing-like things at the end. Of each wing was a long tube that glowed bright blue at the back end.
You think you would just say it looked like a dragonfly?
It looked like a dragonfly, or better, it looked like a penis.
that's naughty talk. 2 fingers, drink.
Of course, you would describe it as a penis.
You're obviously
That's all.
describing-
That's the only thing you're thinking about is penis.
That's all you drew.
I always just think of it as the ships from Spy Kids 2.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's just exactly what I think it looks like, and maybe that's the time that I read it. But there are certain points in here where a little bit of creativity on the author's part would have done a lot.
Yeah.
Like if the spaceship looked something slug-like, maybe I don't know, something that just wasn't just
No, I think to be fair, that
Coming now, they look like spaceships.
right.
And as a kid, you're like, cool.
I think the
alright,
designs were
I
alright.
think it depends.
Impractical, especially with regard to the dome ship,
You
but
can
I
see
think
a
they're
lot of Star
alright.
Wars. You're like, oh my god, it's an X-wing.
It is 180 pages, and you probably would start losing kids' attention much after that.
I was not bored with this book. That
I was
being
not.
said.
It was a good book. It was a pretty good book.
It never goes.
Wasn't great, but it was good.
Action scene, like they do have exposition
They got
in
the
there.
barn where they're touching
Right.
animals.
Yeah, I think it's good, and they do a lot of reflection. At least in this book, he talks a lot about what has happened up to this point to kind of like catch the readers up.
Yeah. I think it also plays the older brother card pretty well. So Jake and Marco are playing video games.
Yep.
And Tom comes in. Tom is already infected at this point. And Tom's like, oh, you guys should join the sharing. Like,
Yep.
you should come to my cult. And when he goes, like, why should we join your cult? He's like, why should we come? His older brother just punches him. and
Right.
he just throws a fist, says nothing, walks away. And while that seems kind of lazy, that's probably what my
That's
older
probably
brother would do.
My brother used to do that.
Dare to challenge me? Here you go. I'm out of here.
I used to do it to him
Brother
now.
is unreasonably sassy to Jake, and I
Oh,
say
yeah.
unreasonably. Jake's like, "Oh, where are you going tonight?" Tom's like, "Nowhere," and his dad's like, "It's a girl," and Tom's like, "Yeah, it's a girl."
Yeah, I got a girlfriend. I'm not infected with an evil.
Yeah, it's nice of Tom's dad to think he's dating
Yeah,
a girl.
that's really nice. It would have been really nice if Jake at that point would be like, nah, it's probably some guy. And Tom would have been like, yeah, it's probably one of those two. Who knows? I'm just an alien.
I've had to change microphone, by the way. That one's gone out, but this one is now recording, so we're all good. Always have a backup.
Oh, you're probably just gonna go see a girl, right? And they're like, yeah, girl. I know what this thing is.
Yeah, so they don't talk about it strictly. I think the Yerks kind of get the memories of that person.
Okay.
I imagine they have to, because they don't just take the person like, who am I now?
Right.
They got to get something. So I wonder if the Yerks get the memories. You know, when you're driving a new car.
Yeah, they do. That's established pretty early on, actually.
That's kind of what the Yeerks are like when they get a body. And this is my personal fan theory conspiracy here.
Sure.
That's why Tom quit the basketball team. It wasn't because he wasn't interested in basketball as an alien.
Sure.
Because you're trying to keep your cover, right?
Right.
I think it's partially because the
You just didn't know how.
the Yeerk was shit at basketball.
Because basketball is a crap sport.
Like, he knows the rules, but when he gets on the court, it's like
Space Jam.
Space Jam. I was literally going to say
Space Jam.
It's after the Monstars and Space Jam took Barkley's powers. Right.
You're just like, you want to be God. You can't play basketball with us anymore.
Yeah.
You're not Barkley. You're just some guy that looks like Barkley.
There's our hip '90s reference.
96 came out the same year.
Fun fact.
Is that that's got to be a 90s reference then, surely?
Still up.
Three fingers,
Just
drink.
Like it appeared in 96.
Yeah.
And they're coming with a second one, which...
There was a good Onion article a while back. It said, like, LeBron James leaves Space Jam 2 cast to join Championship cast.
that is really good. Okay, so...
Ah.
by and large, not a bad book.
No, overall...
Good. It's a
I
good
enjoyed
book.
it. I thought it was fun.
And I do think, at the point that you are old enough to read it, it's appropriate for you.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything that's outlandish here.
No.
Couple of things like
This is,
murder.
and I'm not sure how I feel about it yet, because I think typically what happens in a book where two of the main characters are related, they talk about it all the time, and they don't, other than the one weird, like, incestual line, they never mention
They don't
again.
really bring it up.
They're never like, hey, aren't you and your parents coming over for, like, our family dinner or anything like that?
I think the only reason they don't bring it up, I think the only reason they do bring up that they're cousins, is because Rachel's the one that you want everyone to date in the book.
Sure, okay.
And they're trying to throw Cassie they're trying to give Cassie a bone,
Right.
no pun intended.
Right. They should have just left it.
Is this
that
naughty
out.
talk?
They never mentioned it until the last book where they're like, oh yeah, by the way, we're cousins. That's why we never...
That's why we didn't hook up.
Hey, did you want to hook up now? Jake, we're cousins. Oh yeah, I forgot.
Outside of this book series, I imagine...
I'm gonna say. Oh, hold on, wrong.
Hopefully they win.
I'm gonna say at this point, it counts as naughty talk. They've done enough of this. It counts as naughty talk. I'm finishing my drink. Oh God, I've got another 5 minutes left. 4, 5. I've finished all my hoe gardens. If I had to drink any more, I have to dip into the hobgoblin.
Against the aliens. I imagine they do win against the aliens. I wonder if they're into bestiality at the end of these books.
Oh,
What?
one of the...
That's just clear naughty talk. Fucking hell. It's a kids' series. Which means I have to dip into the hobgoblin now. Jesus Christ. Why do people bring this stuff into Animorphs? Hobgoblin is quite a departure from Hogarden, because Hogarden's a white beer. A wheat beer. Very light. Very tasty, actually. Whereas Hobgoblin is a ruby. And a strong ruby at that. It's that colour. It's near enough a stout. I don't like stout. Apologies if the microphone quality isn't as good right now, because I've had to go to a Zoom microphone. It's an awesome bit of kit, by the way. I've had this thing for years. It's awesome. I love it. It's done me well, but it's not suited to this particular purpose. But oh well. Right, so that's naughty talk. That's 2 fingers. Drink, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, that's certainly a different taste from the Hogarden.
Good point about that is that I assume...
God, blimey.
Because, I mean, in 54 books, they have got to be somewhere other than this weird podunk town in California.
Yeah, they've got to...
Well, yeah, they go to North
So
Pole.
at some point, they are going to have to take an animal's DNA from the wild.
Yeah.
They're going to have to. And so,
It's obvious that they haven't read...
at some point,
They've read this book and they
either
haven't
their
read
instincts
the
or
others.
The instincts of the animals around them, and someone's getting fucked.
Yeah, I was kind of...
Wait, what?
surprised that when he turned into his dog Homer, it wasn't like, I started humping Margot's leg.
They're going to have to. And so you've got to imagine that at some point, either their instincts or the instincts of the animals around them, and someone's getting fucked.
What? Are you fucking serious? What? Why have we delved into this? Oh, well, it's naughty talk. And it's also cringe. Medi bollocks. If you're still watching by this point, if you're still here, if you're still braving it with me, 2 fingers for you is 2 fingers for you extra. So you're drinking 4, the rest of us are drinking 2. Why are we dipping into this?
Yeah. I was kind of surprised that when he turned into his dog Homer, it wasn't like I started humping Margot's leg.
Yeah. And I understand that it is for kids, so you probably can't.
We can't talk about how Homer's humping Margot's
Oh,
leg.
probably.
It happened on the side. They just didn't talk about it.
Right.
That's why there's just weird, don't look at me sexual tension between all the male characters.
Right.
What?
So you have only ever read Goosebumps as another kids series?
That's the major one I read. I'm sure I dabbled.
Got a hobgoblin. Oh, God, I don't like that.
A. Applegate's other series, Remnants.
I don't like it. Oh, that was an aforementioned 1 finger drink.
I remember reading that first one and being scared of it as a kid because it's about the Earth being destroyed, and I live there, so
I like that one.
I like that planet. It's my favorite one.
Oh,
I remember reading that. I didn't really touch these again.
So let's say you get a time machine. You get to go back 15 years.
that's grim. I do not like that.
Yeah, I think I would.
Yeah,
give
maybe
this
it's just because I've been drinking Hogarden. It's such a different
I
taste.
remember young Chris reading this series,
Mhm.
and I vividly remember being like, "What if my brother's a yerk?" I have an older brother
Wow.
who played basketball.
My older brother's a
Wow.
Hit me in
yerk.
the shoulder one time.
Once.
Everything lined up. I might have been Jake.
It could have been me.
Hot cousin excluded.
Okay, so I would say that I would recommend it to my young self as well. I would
Yeah.
go back and be like, you know what, you should probably give it a chance.
The good news is the covers of these books attract young Chris.
Oh, yeah.
There's two different covers here.
Yep.
So there's the original series, which was 96 to 2001.
Yep.
Which has the face of a character.
Yep.
And then it transforms across like 5 or 6 transformations
Yep.
into the animal.
Yep.
And then in the reprints, they
Yep.
have these cool holographic covers,
Yep.
which will show a character, and then it'll show a transformation.
Yes. And I think the transformations are different. Because on the first one, it was not him into a lizard. It was him into something else.
No, it's all.
The invasion on both the covers.
It is?
It's him into a lizard.
Thank God I didn't have to do something wrong there.
Where they're
Yeah.
still like figuring out how to do the transformations. So on the first book, it's pretty funny. They have the kid in the bottom left, the lizard top right, and the first change is like this very bad 3D model
Right.
of a boy.
It's some boy.
It sticks out like a sore thumb.
Right. It's real bad.
It's pretty bad, yeah.
And I have the reprint. Although I ordered the series and they should be here on Monday, and they're the first print.
Ooh.
Original
Original collectible.
Original collectible. I couldn't believe how much the whole series was going for on eBay. It was like
Right.
$200.
I mean, that's $4 a book.
The latter books of the series are
Still,
rare.
it's a
To be
little
fair.
under $2 or $4 a book.
Yeah. I got like the first like 30 for like $45.
Yeah.
And then the second up until 40, it was like $1.30.
Now we have to keep reading.
A buck.
I'm gonna have them
As opposed to a
soon.
pound.
Yeah.
Okay. So,
Inferior currency.
is this your favorite Animorphs book so far?
So far, I think out of all the Animorph books I've read for this podcast, this would be my favorite.
It's gotta be. I
You've
mean,
only read one.
Although controversially, I would think it is the worstly written Animorphs book that we've read.
yes, I would.
Or wait till you get to 37.
Easily the worst written Animorphs book. I do like the fact that moving forward, it's gonna be a different author because
Yeah.
I think I'd get really sick of Jake after a while.
Yeah, I do like that the perspectives jumps around.
Right.
And I
Fair
think that
enough.
also helps for character development because
Right.
you know how Jake feels, you know how Jake thinks. In the next book, when Jake's a character and
Right.
not the person whose perspective we're in,
Right.
it'll add flavor of like, we know Jake's morals and love for Tom is what drives him. And
Right.
I think when you're in Marco's head, you'll see what drives him, and I think it'll help actually develop the characters. And I think it's a cool way to come at a series. I don't know if another series has really done it that way.
I don't know of any.
I know others, like I remember the Ender's Game series.
Right.
Those books are written from different perspectives
Sure.
of the same events,
Okay.
not of different events from different characters that are at all of them. So
Right.
I think it's a little unique for the series, and I genuinely think it will add to the series. I don't think it will detract.
We'll recommend this book. It is available at libraries.
Of course you'll recommend it. You're doing a podcast on it.
And probably at yard sales and book sales and
the internet.
And the internet and Goodwill. Oh, yes. There's also free audiobooks
Yes.
through Reddit. Yeah, somebody went through and took the PDFs and ran them through a program and turned them all into audiobooks.
There are official PDFs. There are official audiobooks now that you can buy. Proper.
Pork Bajur.
Right. Which
What would you?
I mean,
I have a hard time with that one.
right. I can understand that. So there are ways of getting it. We will be doing the second book next week. Well, actually, next episode.
We
Which will
plan
be
to release this every 2 weeks.
every 2 weeks. So look out for that, I guess.
Yeah. So the first book here is The Invasion. The
Yep.
second one is The
Visitor.
Visitor.
Okay.
And it has a very bad cat human on it.
That's got to be one of either Rachel or Cassie then.
I think this one's Rachel because it has a hot blonde with blue eyes. So it
Wow.
must be.
Does it look like your cousin?
Wow.
Alright, so The Invasion. Next episode rather, we'll be doing The Visitor, which is probably from Rachel's perspective.
Yep.
There's a cat on the cover.
I think is going to be a trend.
Yeah, I mean, it's from 96. Like, Photoshop didn't come out until, 98, so I don't know how they were actually making this.
Mm-hmm. I hope in the next books they don't talk as much about the morphs.
Oh, believe me, it comes thick and fast.
Talk about Tobias becoming a cat.
Yep.
He morphs as a cat. And it says the tail was pulled up like a snake in a vacuum cleaner.
Which is a really good euphemism for not that.
Yeah, it's dirty. So maybe I want them to talk about the morphs more.
Yeah.
Naughty talk. 2 fingers. Drink.
Maybe that's the only way that she can sneak in these, weird euphemisms in adult language, because I read that and I was like, is that really the
I felt
best
dirty.
way? Yeah. I needed to take a shower after that. Like, is that really the best way to describe that?
Probably not.
But
Oh,
thanks,
horrible
yeah.
drink.
Yeah.
Ugh.
We talked about tails going up buttholes. That's enough.
Fuck's sake. What? Nah, same conversation, same naughty talk, same forfeit.
Yeah. Although Jake loses his tail as the lizard. I thought that
does.
was going to have repercussions. I thought that was going to do something.
Yeah, so he gets stepped on, he loses his tail, and nothing really happens of it.
Yeah, nothing. He never mentions it.
So it implies that
Because
he turned the morph
you don't understand.
come back.
But
It's confusing to me because at the beginning of the book, the alien who can morph doesn't just morph to heal himself.
right.
But I guess if he's hurt as his normal self, if
Maybe?
he morphs, does he...
Plot holes.
Plot holes. We'll learn. We'll learn the stories.
There's 54 books. Hopefully one of them will address this at some point in
What
time.
about that one time you got killed in your morph and then you morphed back? Were you okay?
Were you okay?
I think that's it.
I think that's it. Thank you for joining us for this first episode.
Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah.
We hope to have you back.
Which we probably won't, but thanks for coming for this first one.
We're hopeful.
We're hopeful.
Thanks.
Thanks.
They didn't even mention their podcast name at the end. I was waiting for that last drink. That was it. That was AniMorons episode 1. 55 minutes, and I got through just over 4 drinks. I'm sorry. And this isn't the podcast's fault. But I feel like this isn't a very entertaining episode. Partly because it was quite long, but also wasn't drinking that much, and I didn't have much to say. I just couldn't find any point where I could really bring much up. I mean, it was all right, but it was it was just that. So if you've made it this far, bloody congratulations. You've joined me this far. Oh, God. If you want to check out more of AniMorons, there's a link in the description if you liked it. I think it was good. Production quality was very good. They had good interplay between themselves. I was just very confused as to how much they knew about the series, because at times it sounded like they'd read the book, at times it sounded like they hadn't read the book. I was a bit confused about that. But yeah, if you like that, it just wasn't very drinkable. It just wasn't very drinkable. The reason I'm watching these podcasts is because I want to drink a lot, and after 55 minutes, I haven't even got through 5 drinks, so I'm a bit disappointed. But that's just the way it goes. It's just the way it goes. I just need to get to more Axe books where there are more cinnamon buns, so down your drinks moments. So it's just the way it is. Maybe next week we'll have a bit more fun. So thank you very much for watching, and I shall see you next time. Ta-ra.